County supervisors, guests, and staff, please hit your roll call buttons. There we go. He's not absent. Supervisor Kessler, did you push yours as present? We have you marked absent.
I'll get it.
There we are.
I don't think he can now.
Okay. Emily is absent and Ann is here.
I have to wait till I get to the next screen.
Okay. All right, so we have how many?
There's 20 present.
We have 20, 19. Yep,
Oh,
she's
that's
here.
right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We have 19, so much is gone, right? We have 19 present, 1 absent, and 1 vacant as of now. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance if you are able. Please remain standing in honor of our vets who have passed on or in honor of. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would supervisors, guests, and staff please stand if you were in service? Thank you for your service. All right, moving on. I have a motion by Supervisor Latour and a second by Supervisor Halshu to approve the agenda. All in favor, please vote your ballot. All right, we have 19 yes, 0 nay, 1 abstained, and 1 absent. All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Elliott and a second by Supervisor Cleveland. Were there any corrections to the minutes at all? Seeing none, please vote your ballot. I have 18 yes, 0 no, 2 abstain, and 1 absent. All right. On number 5, we have appointment to Supervisor District 2. Yay. We recommend the appointment of Tim Blake to the Calumet County Supervisor District 2. I have a motion by Supervisor Steer and a second by Supervisor Diedrich to approve that confirmation. All in favor indicate by voting your ballot. All right, we have 19 yes, 0 nay, 1 abstain, 1 absent. All right, and Supervisor Blake, would you please come forward to take the oath of office?
Calumet County Supervisory District 2.
Calumet County Supervisor District 2.
That have not yet entered upon the duties thereof.
But have not yet entered on the duties thereof.
Swear that I will support the Constitution
I swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. We finally have a full slate. And thank you again to those people who did the walking and the hanging of the doorknobs and the driving. So we just really appreciate everybody's help in getting this done. Okay, we have a communications.
We have one communication, which is a letter from the Calumet County Fair Board, thanking the board for their money.
Appropriation.
Thank
all right.
you.
We place that on file. Is there any public participation? I don't see any. All right, we're going to go on to the resolutions until we have the public hearing at 9:15. So we have Resolution 2024-20.
Resolution authorizing Clean Boats, Clean Waters application for Calumet County, introduced by the Land and Water Conservation Committee.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Hold on.
I have a motion by Supervisor Miller and a second by Supervisor Halshu. And Supervisor Halsnick, would you take care of this resolution, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This program will fund a minimum of 200 hours for an intern to spend time conducting watercraft inspections at 2 boat landings in the county, Stockbridge and County Park. Program allows an intern to spend time educating boaters, collecting and reporting data and report of new or unknown aquatic invasive species. Program helps to prevent the introduction of aquatic invasive species and limit the spread of aquatic invasive species that may already be present. These are the blue shirt guys.
Boucher Tech, okay. Is there any questions regarding this resolution? Supervisor Schwallenberg?
What type of education do they do? Do they stop boaters, or do they go out and?
They're right there at the boat landing and they are chatting with boaters.
Okay, to tell them to make sure they clean their boat off and everything.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if not, any other further questions, please vote your ballot. We have 20 yes, 0 nay, 0 abstain, 1 absent. And that resolution has been adopted. Moving on to Resolution 2024-21.
Resolution eliminating 1 full-time equivalent administrative assistant position in the Planning, Zoning, and Land Information and replacing said position with 1 full-time equivalent program assistant position effective January 1st, 2025, introduced by the Administrative Services Committee.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
No, it's not ready. I know.
I have a motion by Supervisor Huffsberger and a second by Supervisor Steer.
No, just trying to see if that would help.
I'm not getting that. Okay. Are there any questions? And Supervisor Diedrich, would you speak to this resolution, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution, if you read it, is pretty self-explanatory. We're changing the operations in planning and zoning so that we have less of a need for administrative assistant, but a greater need for someone as a program position. So no headcount change, but the job's been evaluated and we need an upgrade in that position. And if you have any questions, we can turn that over to the planning and zoning or to Todd.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this resolution by anyone? If not, please vote your ballot. Mine, it's enabled.
I don't know what's going on.
We don't know what's going on. Our voting is enabled, John.
Is that me?
Does it say?
No, just says voting. It's not doing nothing.
Oh, even it says you voted.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a vote left. want to do a voice vote?
One worked. You can raise a hand.
Okay, raise hand. Aye.
Okay. Aye, okay. Opposed? Right. Resolution has been adopted.
Okay, you gotta give me a second now.
Yep. Okay. All right.
It's weird, it took us to a different,
Resolution 24.
22.
3, yeah. Resolution 24-23. Or 22, excuse me.
Resolution eliminating one full-time equivalent human resources assistant position in the Calumet County Department of Administration, Human Resources Division, and replacing said position with one full-time equivalent human resources specialist position effective January 1st, 2025, introduced by the Administrative Services Committee.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Steers, second by Supervisor Schwallenberg. And Supervisor Diedrich, would you speak to this resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is similar to the one we just passed, but this is in Human Resources. Again, division of duties, we felt it better to have a position of a specialist as opposed to admin assistant. Again, no headcount change. The dollar change is reflected in the budget that will be taken up shortly.
Any questions regarding this resolution?
Got mine on. Yes. We have incorrect information on our screens. It's okay?
Yep.
We'll
Okay.
just have to move on from there. Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
All right. There are no questions. Can you vote your ballot? Try it.
We'll try it. No? All right.
No? Okay, all in favor?
Oh, some of them are.
Okay. All opposed? Resolution has been adopted. Okay, moving,
No, wait,
all
sorry.
right. Okay.
I don't like it any better.
I don't know what's going on today.
Not on my agenda.
Okay, it was 20 yes, 0 nay, 0 abstain, and 1 absent. All right, moving on to Resolution 2024-23.
Resolution creating one full-time equivalent finance supervisor in the Calumet County Health and Human Services Department effective January 1st, 2025, introduced by the Administrative Services Committee.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Schwallenberg, second by Supervisor Hufsberger. And Supervisor Diedrich, would you speak to this resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually results in a headcount increase as opposed to the two previous ones we've talked about. The Admin Services Committee unanimously put this forward to the full county board. The addition of this financial supervisor will give us more direct oversight as is stated in the resolution. And again, this will be, has already been put in a budget and you'll be voting on the dollars shortly. Thank you.
Any questions regarding this resolution? All in favor? Okay, opposed? It's been adopted. All right, we're going to stop right now and go into the public hearing for the 2025 budget. Is there anyone here present from the public who wishes to speak for the 2025 budget? Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak on the 2025 budget? Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against on the 2025 budget? Okay. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition of the 2025 budget? Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition of the 2025 budget? And for the third and last time, anyone here wishing to speak in opposition of the 2025 budget? Public hearing closed. You have your budget in front of you on your desk. Please follow along.
Don't we have to make?
I have to have a motion.
Yep.
I'm just trying to
Resolution-
get set up.
Resolution 2024-24, resolution approving the 2025 budget, introduced by the county administrator.
I have a motion by Supervisor Elliott and a second by Supervisor Booty. And Mr. Administrator, carry on.
Do you have it on the screen, Beth?
Sit down. Good.
All right. Good morning. I think everybody should have a paper copy of the presentation as well. So this will be a familiar format for supervisors that are returning for this budget process, and then first time for some. So David and I kind of do a brief presentation on the budget for you. We give you some economic measures, give you the budget process. David will get into some of the more higher level information regarding the budget, and then we can open it up from there. So the premise really continues to be the same as we develop the budget for 2025, that we identify priorities, so department heads take that opportunity to identify priorities within, and then that kind of flows up to me and David, and then we take the entire budget and define basically whether or not it's a priority, and if we can do that under efficient and effective way of providing the services with accountability to the taxpayers, of course, as the primary. I would also say that we do spend some time making sure that as the budget's developed, that it aligns with the strategic initiatives. So many of you are a part of a process for strategic planning. So that also is taken into account, that we make sure it continues to promote that we're going to attract and retain and develop high-functioning staff and maintain high-quality services and programs for the public. As supervisors, we've said this many times, and I'm sure you've heard it if you've gone to any WCA trainings, that the budget is the single most important policy document that you approve in your term as a county board supervisor. So as supervisors, you serve primarily as the legislative function. And the legislative function really is that limited to policy. So when you look at all of the policies that you do throughout as committee members and county board, the policy for the budget being the most significant, as well as your function of lawmaking. So in our case, it's ordinances that you'll adopt, and I believe we have something for you to do that today, and cooperative decision-making. So when we look at the budget overall, some of you at committee levels have priorities. Certain things may have not made the overall budget based on what the department head had communicated to you at the committee level. So it's important for you to be aware that doesn't necessarily mean it's not ever going to happen. Could mean that it could be a 26, 27. I know I've spoken to some of you about those things that didn't quite make it into the 2025 budget, just overall needing to restrict and identify the top priorities. So as county board supervisors, making sure that you understand the overall, right? That it's not just about a specific thing that you may be promoting or hoping to occur, but that it has to be everything moved up, just like department heads do. The process itself. So we had department heads provide budgets. They also discussed those at the committee level so that you have some input and some insight as to what would be included in the department budgets. Those then are provided to finance. This year, probably unlike any other year, we have a new financial system. So I would say, well, we're in the process of implementing a new financial system. So I would say specifically for department heads and for David that it has been more challenging than any other one we've ever been a part of. And that's mainly just because we're an entire new account structure. As you can imagine, they're not number to number. It's much more complicated and more complicated than I can even explain. But it definitely was more of a challenge just in the process itself, in addition to having to build a budget that's most accountable to the taxpayers. Then we met with each department head as usual. David and I and Matt met with department heads to discuss what was included in their budget in more detail. Included in some of those conversations were the fact that certain things may or may not make it depending on what the bottom line is. But we did include those conversations as a part of our process to make sure that we were informed as we were making decisions. Made those adjustments, and I believe the budget document, unlike previous years in this new system, also includes for you to be able to see, at least in a higher level summary, totals that were requested by departments, and in some line items, those changes that were reduced based on decisions that we had to make to bring it within a more reasonable amount within levy limits. I think that's right, David? We had 13 of you attend the Administrative Services Committee meeting. So that's been our process for more than 10 years to give Administrative Services Committee, invite all the county board supervisors for a more in-depth review prior to the meeting today, with the goal being that you have an opportunity to review and ask questions, and if you needed changes included, that we would be able to have those conversations ahead of time, because this is your opportunity to do that, not at the committee level prior. And public hearing comments, you just saw that we didn't have any. So I typically provide some economic measures, just a higher level overview. And for us in Calumet County, it's a lot of good news. It continues to be a lot of good news for the economic measures. And some of this information is included in the Green Book. And I think some of you, or most of you, have seen what that Green Book is and the information that it provides. I just hit some highlights here that are important, I believe, to pay attention to. One of them being the job growth. So this is a look at the 5-year job growth, 2018 to 2023. And it's presented in a 5 years so that it smooths out any of those peaks and valleys that may occur, especially during COVID. At COVID times, those numbers were significantly different. Negatively impacted statewide job growth in 2020 and 2021 as a result of the pandemic. So during 2018 through 2023, the number of jobs statewide increased only by 1.4%. Most of that still remains due to the decline in 2020. As you can see, Calumet County continues to outperform. This chart in particular shows that we're at 18.5% which is slightly more than 1% job growth over last year. And if you were to look at the Green Book in particular, it highlights Calumet County as the #1 in the state in terms of job growth. Some details about Wisconsin's job market in 2023. Of course, we talk about the job market here as a major employer, also in terms of being able to retain or attract, and the work that's done in economic development. So Jason's work with businesses around in terms of job growth and how to bring people in to Calumet County to work. The employment sectors that leisure and hospitality industry is expected to grow. Computer and mathematical occupations are also expected to grow quickly, while manufacturing has had a slight decline since 2023. And I found that interesting because there is quite a bit of that in Calumet County. However, the growing county that we are has outpaced that. Construction employment remained flat in 2023. Also important to note, wages have increased an average of 21% from 2019 to 2023. So as you've just taken action on some items that were in particular to elevate certain positions within the county, we had a compensation plan done last year, I think it was 2 years ago. So we are making sure that we're paying attention to and continuing to become or maintain our ability to compensate staff so that we can retain those employees and compete in the job market, because nowadays we're competing not just for public sector but for private sector as well. Just see what I'm looking at. Population change. Another positive factor for Calumet County. Changes in the number of residents are due to both internal and external factors. So I know, most of you know, that Calumet County maintains top 1, 2, 3 counties statewide for population growth. And in Wisconsin, that's very important given state law in terms of levy limits. So if you're not growing, you're in a little bit of trouble being able to maintain services and keep pace with inflation and pay the wages as I just described. So for Calumet County, we are very fortunate to have population growth, which then it'll affect other things that we'll talk about. So the natural population growth, internal, is the difference between the number of births in the county and the number of deaths. So that's just as we exist within. The external is those moving in from outside of either Wisconsin or outside of the county. Net migration is the difference between the number of residents moving out of the county and those moving in. Growing population, of course, spurs local businesses and demand for public services. A shrinking population can mean less economic activity and a smaller tax base. So our growth being 3.3% is significant statewide. Equalized values. So equalized values are the state estimates of the current market value of all taxable property in a county. Per capita values tend to be higher in counties with more businesses and in those with more vacation property owned. So if you were to actually look at the Green Book and you would see those top 10 or 11 counties, they're very small rural counties in the north generally. Sparsely populated, but they have vacation property, most of it owned by non-residents. So, you know, things like Door County, when you see Door County, Sawyer, Washburn, Vilas, Burnett, and Bayfield are very high in equalized value due to those vacation properties. And equalized value per capita, you can see we're in our region fourth, slightly less than $130,000, while our growth has been consistent in our region. This has been pretty similar chart, nothing significantly changed in terms of equalized values per capita. Unemployment rate. So you can see the unemployment rate is another measure of economic health for Calumet County. The rate is calculated as the number of county residents 16 or older who are unemployed and looking for work as a percentage of the total workforce in the county. In 2021 and 2022, unemployment rates fell statewide. 23 rates increased slightly to 3% statewide. So unemployment rates tended to be higher in northern Wisconsin, and they continue to be. We continue to lead in our region with the rate of 2.1%, which is pretty significant. I'll let David take over some. Next slides.
Okay, the next slide focuses on net new construction. For a municipality and a government, net new construction is important because it is tied to our levy limits. So when you look at Calumet County, we continue to have strong net new construction. When you look at it as a percentage basis, we're the third highest county throughout Wisconsin. When you look at it as a dollar basis, because of our size, we're 22nd, which is still a strong indicator, but net new construction is very important. So what happens with net new construction is what it really establishes what we're able to raise our tax levy by. So for 2024, that percentage was about 2.41%. That is slightly down from the prior year, like just the entire state is down a little bit in 24, so we're slightly down. But once again, still strong from a net new construction. And that is really a lot of what Todd was going through from a population and all those economic criteria really are what drives our net new construction. Then if you look at that graph, what's important to realize is the significant component of our net new construction was really in the commercial area. So we had strong commercial growth. It represented about 95 million of our net new construction, which it was a important part for the economics of really investing in the commercial area within the state. If we turn to the next page, we have a summary of all the net new construction by municipality within the county. So we still get down to the 2.41%, but you can see which municipalities had stronger net new construction, really led by Village of Harrison that has a lot of new growth up there. But once again, still a strong 2.4%. Yes, Simeon?
I was just curious on Town of Rantoul, it's the negative number. How do you get a negative number there?
Basically, equalized value is an estimate based on the Department of Revenue. So there could be, and I'm not sure exactly the indications, but it's really maybe property being demolished, or pulling property out, or adjusting the value of property within the town.
Thank you.
The next graph really shows the impact of inflation compared to our net new construction. So net new construction isn't driven off of inflation, but inflation drives our operating budget. So that's one of the challenges when you're adopting budgets is looking at what's our inflationary impacts. When we went through a lot of the departments, as Todd talked about, met with departments, where our departments are experiencing a minimum of 5% growth from a lot of the suppliers. The suppliers are charging at least 5% more because of the inflation they're experiencing. So when we're limited to 2.41% and we're contracting and we're seeing 5% growth, it makes challenges from an organizational perspective. And we kind of walk through the impact as we talk with departments. But this kind of shows you kind of what we all saw, a huge increase in inflation in 22-23, and that is really driving our budget. So a lot of our budget is in personnel, and as Todd indicated, we continue to make sure that we're paying our employees to retain them. But we're also subject to market fluctuations on inflation when we're contracting out. And we do contract out for a lot of various services or even utility bills that have gone up in the past year. So next gives you just a couple of quick facts about the budget. So from a governmental, now this excludes our special education fund. If you do remember, we approved that budget earlier because it operates on a July 1st to June 30th, the same fiscal year as a school district. So this does not include the special education budget, although when you look at the resolution and you look at the budget, we did forecast because of the change in health insurance, there was an additional $70,000 that fund's going to absorb from the health insurance change. Now, we didn't change the levy, but that is really an impact on that fund. But when you look at the total expenditures, we're up about 7.3%. Across all the funds. Now, a lot of that is capital. It relates to the different projects that we're operating under. When you look at the tax rate, our tax rate is based on equalized values. So it isn't based on assessed value, but it's based on equalized value. So our tax rate on an equalized value went down from 3.63 to about 3.5. If you looked at some of the charts on equalized value, you saw we had about a 6% increase in equalized value. So as our value goes up and we're limited to net new construction, you're going to see a decrease in our tax rate. And that's what we saw in the current year. Now, our tax levy is based on things that are, the levy limits and certain things that are outside the levy limits. But the property tax levy for the 25 budget as provided to you is looking at a tax levy of approximately 23.7 million, or about a 2.3% increase in our tax levy. And the final category is our general fund applied. As you're aware, we have consistently applied general fund balance. Primarily, it's because when we one of the reasons is when we adopt a budget, we anticipate every position is filled every day of the year. Now, if we taxed up to 100% of that value based on turnover, we would have some additional. We would overtax. So we do adjust in our general fund balance applied. We also take, because our general fund continues to be strong, we do fund some of our capital outlays from our general fund versus a tax levy. They're included in the budget, and we use some of our fund balance to apply on those. We continually monitor throughout the year our fund balance, and obviously looking at how we continue to maintain a strong fund balance. But we're looking at a $2.7 million fund balance in the general fund compared to about $2.4 million for the prior year. And we'll talk a little bit on one of the other slides, some of the drivers to that increase. The 2025 tax rate, as I mentioned before, did go down approximately 13 cents per thousand. Once again, that is on equalized value. And so when the county applies our tax rate, we apply it to each municipality based on the equalized value of that municipality. The municipality then uses the assessed rate. And so if you're looking at your tax levy and your tax bill and saying, hey, it ain't 3.50, it's because assessed value is how the levy gets distributed, but equalized value is how we spread the levy across the municipalities. The reason for that is assessed value isn't always 100%, where equalized value is trying to get a fair representation so that the tax levy is allocated fairly among all the municipalities. Equalized value is set by the state of Wisconsin. Assessed value are set by the local assessors within the community. So there's just a little clarification on when you see your tax bill, or if you say you're going to see a $3.50 tax rate on your tax bill. It's going to vary based on assessed value, but how we allocate it to municipalities is based on equalized. Slide 14 looks at the change in the annual tax rate. So you can see over the last 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years, we have seen decreasing tax rates as a percentage. Looking at all the way to the last 5 years, we've seen about 8% decrease. Now, why in the last 5 years have we seen? If you remember a couple of years ago, the value of property shot up. So that's part of the equalized value, and that increase in the values of people's properties impacts this tax rate on an equalized value basis. But it's still, you can see that the county has maintained or decreased the tax rate each year, looking over the last 25 years. Any questions on that? Then when we look at levy increase, you can see how the county has managed the levy. So for over the last 5 years, our levy increase is a little over 2%. Now some of this has an impact on the levy limits and what we have to live within. And so you can see that the county has traditionally maintained a increase of somewhere between 2 and 3.5% each year based on the factors of managing and providing quality services, yet managing the impact on the local residents within the county. So slide 16 looks at our equalized tax rate compared to surrounding counties. And so we use these 7 counties, 6 other counties, and Calumet because they're close to us. You can see our tax rate at 3.50 is right kind of in the middle of the rates. When you look at Outagamie and Brown, they're a little bit lower, but remember their equalized value is a lot higher than ours because of the location and the larger municipalities within those. So this is based on equalized, but we continue to be very competitive from an equalized rate, and this is really queried off of what all the other counties are proposing for their 25 budget. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, the next slide looks at allowable debt. So what is debt service? Debt service is when we issue debt to the market to pay for capital projects. We are obligating ourselves to future tax levies to finance that debt. So we issue what we call general obligation debt, which really puts the financial backing of the county, the equalized value. You are limited by the state statutes to 5% of your total equalized value. You can see we're only at 10% of that value. So we have a lot of capacity if we wanted to issue debt. We do not want to issue debt. From a standpoint, our goal is to use sales tax funds to continue our capital projects and build the infrastructure within the county. Now you can see that we're a little bit higher than the other surrounding. That is primarily because we just finished the jail project, and that jail project added about $35 million of debt. So, as we pay down that debt, that number will get lower and lower. But when you have a large project, you'll see that this number can increase. We still are in great financial shape from a debt legal margin. And like I said, we're a little bit higher because of the size of our county and the most recent project that we had. But we have not issued any debt in the last couple of years, and there is no intention by the county to issue debt going forward. Okay. So this really goes out and forecasts our debt service amount per year for the next through 2039. So when we do go to market, you can issue either 10-year or 20-year bonds. So we issued 20-year bonds with the sheriff jail expansion and construction. And you can see we've structured the debt service so that we're paying around $3 million per year. Now, the key thing from a management of the debt service is debt service directly impacts our levy. So we have the ability, irregardless of levy limits, to raise our levy that we can issue up to the amount of our debt service. It's what makes our debts saleable to the market. So we have to have the ability to raise. So what you see here is we've managed it so that it doesn't have a negative impact on the residents, and over the next 14, 15 years, our levy for debt service is going to be remaining fairly constant. That's focusing on that we do not anticipate issuing additional debt, and we're going to maintain about a $3 million debt service. That's just going to make sure that long term, the residents of the county have a consistent amount that we're applying for debt service levy going forward. Now, where the market is, or where many counties are at, is they're using debt service to raise their levy because it is the process of which you can raise the levy. So they issue debt and pay it off over a quick period of time. We have not done any of that. We have structured a debt service to make sure that it has minimal impact on the community going forward. And as you can see once we hit 2039, that will not change our ability to raise levy. We'll just, if we have issued no debt up to that point in time, our tax levy will just go down by around $3 million. Any questions on that? Okay, the next, one of the key questions is where are we spending our money? What types of activities are we spending primarily our funds on? So when you look at our governmental funds, you look at the primarily, you can see the general government. You can see health and human services. That's both our human services operations, it's our home health and hospice operations, it's also our veterans operations, veterans office. So that accounts for about 35% of our expenditures. Public safety is really our jail and emergency management. That accounts for 18.1%. And then our general government is really managing, its maintenance, its administration, its finance, its IT. That accounts for about 18.7%. Our public works accounts for about 11.3%. That is primarily charges from our county highway to the county to maintain the county's roads and bridges. So this does not include the operations of the highway department. That is a proprietary fund, but that fund charges the county for maintaining county roads and bridges, and that accounts for about 11%. The rest is various different debt service or conservation or parks and education. Any questions on where we spend our funds? Okay. The next graph looks at where we receive funding to cover the expenditures we just saw on that prior page. So one of the things that you can see is we're heavily dependent on the tax levy. So about 41% of our revenue comes from the tax levy. When that's restricted to a 2% increase or 2.4% increase, as we saw when we looked at net new construction, that has to cover 41% of our budget. Then when you look at intergovernmentals, we do get revenues from the state in various different federal programs for maintaining our operations. We get some general revenues like our shared revenues. We also get general transportation aids that offsets the county's costs to maintain the roads and bridges within the county. We also get a lot of aid from the state for our health and human services as we provide services to the residents of the county. Only about 16% of our revenues are really charges to the public for services that we're providing or charges to other governments. So that includes, for example, that also includes the Harrison. We have officers in the village of Harrison, and Harrison reimburses us for that cost. So that's part of our charges. So when you see 16%, that's just not the public. That also includes the municipalities that we are serving, and the primary area in that is really our public safety and our Harrison contract. Any questions on that? Now, when you look at what departments are supported by levy and general revenues, the sheriff's office is the largest operations from a standpoint of reliance on taxes and general revenues of the county. And then that is followed by Health and Human Services. If you go back to a couple slides, you'll see our Health and Human Services had much higher expenditures than public safety, but a lot of that is public charges, like home health and hospice relies on charges to individuals and insurances. We also get intergovernmental revenues from the state to offset a lot of our health and human services area. So you can kind of see from a standpoint where the support is needed and what departments are reliant on both our general property taxes and our shared revenues that we receive. Any questions on that? Okay, and the final slide is our budget highlights, and as we talked about a couple times, the net new construction was 2.41. The statewide average was 1.62. So if you go back to that chart where I said we were the third highest percentage, you can see where the state as a whole is, and you can see the impact of being on the upper end of that really is benefiting the county. The 2024 equalized value TID out. So when Todd talked about TID in, TIF districts are economic tools that municipalities use to grow the value within their municipalities. But when we're assessing taxes, the value or the growth within a TIF district is really retained by the municipalities and investment in the infrastructure that they put in. So we use TID out when we allocate the equalized TID out of equalized value when we allocate the property taxes to the municipalities, and that went up 5.94%. So a very strong growth, and didn't hit the values that we saw last year, but still a very strong growth in our equalized value. Next line is we did talk about our general fund balance. We did apply $2.7 million as we talked about as part of the 2025 budget. Now, the next bullet point talks a little bit about one of the major drivers of that. So as Todd talked about, we continue to make sure that we're reinvesting in the workforce of the county. But we also have to provide benefits to the county's workers. And one of the largest drivers that we experienced this year was about a $1.3 million increase in our health insurance across all the county operations, with about $1.2 million of that really being in our governmental and proprietary funds, and about $70,000, as I mentioned earlier, really is part of our special education program. So that drove a lot of our expenditures as we looked at the cost to provide benefits. We did As you heard during the admin service, we did make a few modifications to some of our deductible levels, et cetera, to only get a $1.2 million increase. Our initial projections were somewhere up in the 30% increase in health insurance, and we got it down to about 18 by going out to market and looking at different alternatives and making some slight modifications to the benefits that we have. So still a large impact and an impact that we'll have to continue to monitor as a county. But that's kind of one of the drivers that really drove our 2025 budget. And
Anything on the budget? Nothing? Oh, Supervisor Diedrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Todd and Dave. But I looked through the budget, and it shows about $5.9 million in the sales tax fund projected at the end of the year. Is that all unallocated or uncommitted, or is there some of that committed?
a lot. There is a component of that that's unrestricted, meaning we could commit it to other projects, but our capital projects often take multiple years to complete. So I don't have what that value is, but it's probably around, we're probably going to end up with about $3.5 million of uncommitted funds at the end of
the roughly 5.9 or 6
Correct,
million.
yeah.
Okay. You talked about the drivers for the uptick on one of your last slides, and the healthcare cost was obviously significant, 1.3 million. But that leaves 3.7 million from the year-to-year budget budget expenditures. What's the next biggest driver that you can recall besides the healthcare cost?
So our personnel cost went up, a 2% increase and then step increases. So that accounts for anywhere from probably about a 3.5–4% increase in our total expenditures. Really relates to maintaining the wage structure for our employees. So when we look at total expenditures, there's also expenditures, for example, that grow. Like Jason's group received $1 million grant for EPA, so that drives expenditures, but it also has revenue.
Correct.
So it doesn't fall to the tax levy side. So, but those type of things also drive expenditures. But primarily the driver is the cost we're getting from our suppliers has gone up generally around 5%. Like IT, if you get only a 5% increase on a contract for an IT service, that's probably pretty good, because some of them wanted to go up much higher, and John and his group keep working with them to keep that cost down. So it's really the cost of dealing with suppliers who are trying to pass along their inflationary increases that they've had, along with the personnel cost as we're trying to deal with the inflation, but also just maintaining a good, strong, consistent compensation plan to our employees, and also the health insurance cost.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, are you ready to vote on the ballot? All right, please vote your ballot. We're good? It's not working, no. All in favor of the 2025 budget, raise your hand. We have a majority vote, so the 2025 budget has been adopted. And thank you very much for your attention. And thank you, David and Todd. All right, moving on the budget, we have the supervisory reports. Please vote your, please, I guess we can't do that either, so you'll have to raise your hand if you wish to speak. And Supervisor Schwellenberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, last month we didn't have Health and Human Services or Parks. This month we will. Parks is this Thursday. Health and Human Services meeting will be on Monday. Hopefully you can all attend. I also am on the WCA Personnel, Finance, and County Organization Steering Committee. And one of the things I was going to report on is this little bulletin you have from Forward Analytics that's sitting, so I'm not going to say anything about it other than it has to do with the baby boomer population is now aging out where they're going to need either assisted living or nursing homes or stay in place in their own homes. And it's projected that they will need at least 10,000 more healthcare workers to care for this population. And the most they need is the CNAs or the nursing assistants, and those people, that job is not really sought after lately. It's poorly paid, and it's hard work. They found people can go to Walmart or to a gas station and earn more money than you can taking care of our elderly or people that need help. So all the information that was given to us at the meeting is in this brochure, if you would like to read it. The other was a legal update given by Andy Phillips. For those new board members who are not aware of who Andy Phillips is, he's the general counsel for the Wisconsin Counties Association and owns a tolless law firm. And what was discussed, and our sheriff is sitting over there, so he can... It was a lot. He said they've been working for 3 years, and they've been working with the Badger State Sheriff's Organization on the state statutes. They don't want to change the job description, but they're looking at the succession in the sheriff's office if he or she is unable to perform their duties. And Andy asked the question, does anybody know if the sheriff can't perform his duties, who is in charge after him? And the only person that knew was a register of deeds, I think, it's the coroner that steps in. And they said because a lot of counties have gone to a medical examiner instead of a coroner, this is now confusing things because there's a department head who is at the pleasure of the county administrator and executive, or an elected official. So they want to change it so that either the chief deputy or the undersheriff would be the one that would be in charge. Also, when the sheriff decides, if he decides not to run again or whatever, that person who's in that position as the undersheriff would be able to go back to the job if he's brought up from in-house, like from patrol or whatever, that he is guaranteed to get his job back once he's no longer undersheriff or whatever. So it was quite a lengthy discussion. They also talked about who appoints deputies for the Register of Deeds and the clerks, and it gets involved then with human resources and everything. You can appoint, but you can't hire or whatever. So it was very interesting. So and like I said, the other thing was Forward Analytics. There was a presentation from the Library Association too. It was quite an interesting meeting. Thank you, Madam. Oh, one other thing, and I don't know if I'm going to steal anybody else's thunder, but Green Light Project, you are? Okay. You want to discuss it? Go ahead then, I was going to say. I will let you talk about it then. Thank you.
All right. I have something to report. I attended the Brothertown Tribal dedication of the Dix Cemetery in the town of Brothertown, and many of you don't even probably know where this is. But before the Heritage Orchard is a stoned, walled off of the Dick ancestries who were Brothertown Indians. And it was quite interesting. Jason had started out with some of the stuff, and Jim Sense was there. And it was really interesting how they depicted the different ancestral traits of the people buried there. There were about 50 people there, and I would say about 3/4 of them were members of the tribe. It was really quite interesting, and I was glad I attended on behalf of the county. I also want to indicate that we have a new addition to our county board. Supervisor Ann Macheski has welcomed into a little girl named Micaiah. So congratulations, Ann. And just as you know, Armistice Day is coming. If you have a green light, please put it outside in your outside receptacle. Keep it on until after Armistice Day. You can start it out, it was supposed to start Sunday, and so just keep it lit, just in honor of our veterans. Please do that if you do have one. Outside of that, coming up, we have the Ambassador Program. It's a program that I started when I was president of the WCA, and it indicates where supervisors can go to Madison and talk individually to our legislators regarding certain legislation that's coming up this year. And if you read your county book, you will see that they have laid out the legislative agenda for the next 2 years. And we attend that, and also it's January 23rd, and the Human Services Day is April 17th. And it'll be held at the Best Western Hotel this year in Madison, which is right across from the Capitol. So I usually allow 5 to 6 people to go. It's a whole day, and usually we go down the night before, unless you want to drive down in the morning, but it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. We have a short briefing on what legislation we're going to be talking about. We usually meet with our representatives around 11, and then there's lunch, and then we're done for the day. So I guess after tomorrow, we'll find out who our representatives are going to be. And so it'll be a whole different group that we're going to be meeting with this year. So if any of you are interested, if you would just let me know, and I will keep your name in line when we decide to make that decision, who will and who will not go. So it's kind of an interesting day. I think we learn a lot. It's an opportunity for us to tell and to instruct the representatives what that legislation pertains to, rather than them just doing a mandate here or a mandate there and no monies to come with it. So if you're interested, please let me know. And with that, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, right? We did it. And I also, those who hunt deer, happy season. And I'd like just for a few minutes to have Tim tell us a little bit about himself.
Thank you all very much. Tim Blake, grew up on the southeast side of Appleton, left Appleton after getting married back in 1997. I lived in the town of Algoma, which is off of 21, just west of Oshkosh. I was on the town board from 2003 to 2009. From that point, I was elected town chairman in 2009 to 2015. Got divorced back in 2014. Decided to take a little time away from politics. The one thing, when I came home, was either a Thursday or a Friday. I had the door hanger on my door when I got home from work, and I've been interested in getting back into politics and being part of the public, helping out the public. I immediately filled out the questionnaire, and I'm very happy to be here, and looking very forward to working with everyone here. What I do for a living, I'm a plant manager, and one of the things that we always say at work, the same, we're one team, we're one direction, and that's where we're going to go. We may not always get along, but, we're all in this, not only represent our own districts, but represent the county as well, as a whole, and I'm looking very, very forward.
Thank you, Tim. All right, anybody else have anything to report? Yes, Supervisor Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to share some highlights of the October 7th Aging and Disability Resource Center Advisory Committee meeting. During that meeting, we welcomed Supervisor Lowy to the committee. We elected Ann Calnan to vice chair. The ADRC approved the final draft of the 25 to 27 aging plan. I think it's moving over to HHS now. And just a plug for the ADRC webpage. If you haven't had the opportunity, please go out and check the ADRC webpage. There's a lot of fantastic information there. A lot of events happening in our communities. And on there, you can sign up for the ADRC Connections newsletters. You can read them there online, or you can sign up for them to come to your email. Plenty of volunteer opportunities listed on the webpage. Definitely need more volunteers, so if you have time and you like volunteering, look at the opportunities that are there. And finally, just thanks to all the ADRC and HHS folks working hard in the background, providing so many great services for our community. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Elliott. Anyone else? All right, then we'll move on. Excuse me, Susan.
I apologize. On the Parks Facebook page or the county's Facebook page are the plans for Ledgeview Nature Center. The Nature Center is shut down, or will be shut down this week until early spring, when hopefully the remodeling will be done. The bids are coming in, you said next week, I think, Adam, right, for it? The buildings will be closed. The trails and everything will still be open out at Ledgeview. The staff will be going to County Park, and so will the animals. The animals will be transported and will be in the activities building, which is across from, it used to be called the Coffee Tree Lodge, below the Tube Hill over there. And the staff will be working out of the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Schwallenberg. All right, moving on to the county administrator's report. I want to congratulate the employees for their many years of service that was outlined in the report. Todd, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to, I accidentally omitted Mary Schwallenberg, even though she said I didn't have to mention it. She was a part of volunteering. She helped drive through the neighborhoods, so a few members that were a part of that wanted to make sure that I did not forget that Mary was a part of that. So, and thank you to everybody that did that. Obviously, the outcome being that we finally had some people apply. In addition to just him, we had a couple other people, so that was definitely worthwhile. So thank you for that.
Okay, our next regular meeting will be December 17th at 6 o'clock. And with that, we've completed everything on our agenda, and so I will adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for coming. Drive safely.